In the early hours of December 2001, a calm but panicked voice called 911 from a large home in Durham, North Carolina. The caller was Michael Peterson. He told the dispatcher his wife had fallen down the stairs. He said she was still breathing. Then he corrected himself. She wasn't. Kathleen Peterson was found at the bottom of a narrow staircase inside the couple's home. Blood was everywhere, smeared across the walls, pooled on the floor, streaked along the steps. The amount of blood immediately shocked first responders. Michael Peterson claimed it was a tragic accident. He said they had spent the evening by the pool, drinking wine and talking. Kathleen went inside first. Michael stayed outside. When he eventually came in, he found her at the bottom of the stairs. But from the moment police arrived, something didn't sit right. Kathleen's body showed multiple deep lacerations on her scalp. The blood loss was severe, yet there were no obvious skull fractures. No broken bones that would typically accompany such a violent fall. Even more unsettling, the blood patterns on the walls appeared vertical, not splattered outward as expected from a fall. Some investigators believed the scene looked staged. Others weren't sure what they were looking at. Michael Peterson was arrested and charged with murder, and that's when investigators uncovered something disturbing from his past. As police dug deeper into Michael Peterson's life, they found secrets that would change the case forever. Michael was a novelist and former military officer. He presented himself as intellectual, calm, and composed, but investigators discovered he had been leading a double life. They found emails revealing Michael had been engaging in sexual relationships with men, something Kathleen allegedly did not know. Prosecutors argued this discovery gave Michael motive. They claimed Kathleen found out that night. An argument erupted, and it ended on the stairs then. Came the bombshell. In 1985, another woman had died. Her name was Elizabeth Ratliff, a close friend of Michael Peterson. She was found dead at the bottom of a staircase in Germany. The death had been ruled an accident, but now, 16 years later, investigators reopened the case. The similarities were impossible to ignore. To women, too. Staircases, to massive head injuries, to death-ruled accidents connected by the same man. The prosecution brought this pattern to the jury, painting Michael Peterson as someone who killed before and got away with it. Forensic analysts testified that Kathleen's injuries were consistent with repeated blows. Not a fall. They claimed a blunt object may have been used, but the defense fought back. They argued the blood evidence was being misinterpreted. They claimed Kathleen suffered a fall, attempted to stand, slipped again, and bled out over time. Then came one of the most bizarre theories in true crime history. The owl theory. Defense experts suggested Kathleen may have been attacked by an owl while outside near the house. The talons could explain the lacerations. Disoriented and bleeding, she stumbled inside and fell down the stairs. The theory shocked the courtroom. Some laughed, others weren't so sure. In 2003, Michael Peterson was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But the story didn't end there. Years after the conviction, the case began to fall apart. It was discovered that a key prosecution expert, a bloodstain analyst, had lied under oath in previous cases. His testimony was discredited. Other convictions tied to him were overturned. Michael Peterson was granted a new trial. In 2017, after spending nearly 12 years in prison, he entered an Alford plea, maintaining his innocence while acknowledging the prosecution had enough evidence to convict him. He was released. To this day, there is no definitive answer. Some believe Michael Peterson murdered his wife and nearly got away with it twice. Others believe Kathleen Peterson's death was a tragic accident amplified by coincidence, poor forensics, and media pressure. The staircase remains. The bloodstains are gone. But the questions remain. Did Michael Peterson kill his wife? Or did a terrible accident become one of the most controversial murder cases in American history? That depends on who you ask. After Michael Peterson walked free in 2017, the public reaction was immediate and deeply divided. Some believed justice had finally corrected itself. Others felt a murderer had slipped through the cracks of the legal system once again. But the truth is more unsettling than either conclusion, because even today, There is no consensus on what really happened inside that staircase. To understand why, you have to return to the physical evidence, not as prosecutors or defense attorneys presented it, but as it actually existed. Kathleen Peterson's injuries were unlike those seen in most staircase falls. She had 7 deep. Lacerations on her scalp, some resembling sharp force trauma rather than blunt impact, yet her skull was not fractured. This puzzled medical examiners from the beginning. The prosecution argued that the injuries came from repeated blows with a weapon, possibly a blow poke that was never recovered. They suggested Michael attacked Kathleen during an argument, striking her again and again until she collapsed. But the defense countered with a troubling inconsistency. There was no skull fracture, no brain swelling consistent with a beating, and no defensive wounds on Kathleen's hands or arms. If she had been attacked violently, where was the evidence of a struggle? Bloodstain analysis became the centerpiece of the trial and the source of its eventual collapse. The prosecution as blood expert testified that the patterns on the wall indicated cast-off blood from repeated blows. But years later, it was revealed that this same expert had falsified credentials and exaggerated conclusions in multiple cases across North Carolina. Judges would later describe his testimony as unreliable. Without that testimony, the state's case weakened dramatically. Then there was Michael Peterson himself. Throughout the investigation, he remained eerily calm. Some saw this as guilt, others saw it as shock. Psychologists often warn against interpreting demeanor as evidence, yet juries do it anyway. Michael gave multiple statements that night. Small inconsistencies were magnified during trial. Prosecutors argued his timeline didn't make sense, that he could not have been outside by the pool long enough to miss Kathleen's fall. But forensic experts later testified that Kathleen could have been alive for over an hour after. Her injuries, bleeding slowly, attempting to stand. Slipping repeatedly, this possibility changes everything. And then there is the owl theory, often mocked, but never fully disproven. Owl attacks, while rare, can cause deep talon wounds resembling lacerations. Feathers were reportedly found in Kathleen's hair. Pine needles were discovered in her hand. She had been outside shortly before her death. Could an owl have struck her head, causing confusion and blood loss, leading to a fatal fall? The theory sounds absurd until you examine the injuries closely. Still, critics argue it requires too many coincidences, and coincidences are exactly what haunt this case. Because Kathleen Peterson was not the first woman to die on stairs connected to Michael. Elizabeth Ratliff's death in Germany was re-examined after Kathleen's murder. Her body was exhumed. A new autopsy suggested she may have suffered blunt force trauma, but German authorities had originally ruled her death an accident. Was this a pattern, or was it confirmation bias? Investigators looking for similarities because they expected to find them? This question alone divides experts to this day. Michael Peterson ultimately entered an Alford plea, a legal paradox where a defendant maintains innocence while accepting conviction. It allowed him to walk free without admitting guilt, to some. This was proof he had escaped accountability to others. It was the only way an innocent man could survive a broken system. Kathleen Peterson's daughters have stated publicly that they believe Michael killed their mother. Michael's children stand firmly by his innocence. The family remains permanently fractured. And that may be the most tragic outcome of all, because in cases like this, the truth doesn't just determine guilt. It determines whether grief ever ends. More than 20 years later, the staircase remains one of the most debated crime scenes in American history. There is no smoking gun, no confession, no definitive forensic conclusion, only blood on the walls, a man at the center, and a question that refuses to die. Did Michael Peterson murder his wife? Or did a perfect storm of coincidence, flawed forensics, and human error destroy a family forever? The answer depends on where you stand, and perhaps on what you believe is more terrifying, a killer who almost got away with it, or a system capable of imprisoning the wrong person for life.